The Iowa sun beat down relentlessly on Fort Des Moines in the summer of 1945, baking the parade grounds and shimmering off the barracks roofs. This unlikely setting, nestled amidst endless cornfields, became home to thousands of German women prisoners of war. They arrived by train, disembarking with a mixture of defiance and apprehension, their uniforms dusty, their faces etched with the weariness of a lost war. Many expected barbed wire, meager rations, and the cold, impersonal efficiency of their captors. Instead, they found a sprawling, well-maintained facility, surprisingly green, and an abundance of food that seemed almost obscene given the scarcity they had known. This initial shock was just the first tremor in a series of cultural earthquakes. Captain Sarah Morrison, a no-nonsense woman from a Nebraska farming family, oversaw the camp's administration. Her pragmatic approach, honed by years of managing a large household and then a military office, was rooted in a deep-seated American belief in fair play. She saw her duty not as vengeance, but as upholding the Geneva Convention, a standard her nation proudly championed. Sergeant James Wheeler, a logistics officer from Detroit, Michigan, ensured the camp ran like a well-oiled machine. His experience in the booming automotive factories had instilled in him an unwavering faith in American industrial capacity, a belief that any problem could be solved with enough ingenuity and resources. He'd seen Detroit's factories pivot from cars to tanks overnight, a testament to the can-do spirit that defined his generation. Among the new arrivals was Hauptmann Greta Zimmermann, a former officer in the German Women's Auxiliary Corps. Intelligent and fiercely loyal, Greta viewed her American captors with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. She had been fed years of propaganda depicting Americans as decadent, weak, and racially impure. The reality of Fort Des Moines, however, was a stark contradiction. The food was plentiful, the barracks clean, and the guards, though firm, were not cruel. One sweltering afternoon, during a break from camp duties, a small group of German women, including Greta, were offered a cold, dark beverage by an American guard. It was root beer, a distinctly American soda. They drank it cautiously, then with growing confusion. "Why does American alcohol have no kick?" Greta asked, her brow furrowed, speaking in halting English. The American guard, a young man from Kansas, chuckled. "It's not alcohol, ma'am. It's soda, like a sweet drink." The misunderstanding was profound. To the Germans, a dark, frothy drink served cold could only be beer, and its lack of intoxicating effect was baffling. It was a small incident, but it highlighted a vast chasm in their understanding of America. The U.S. held over 425,000 German POWs by 1945, with a significant, though smaller number of women. Fort Des Moines was one of several camps, and the treatment of these prisoners was a point of contention for some in Washington, D.C. "Why are we coddling them?" some military brass grumbled, still reeling from Pearl Harbor and the brutal fight across Europe. But the prevailing American ethos, championed by leaders like Captain Morrison, was that humane treatment was not coddling, but a demonstration of American values and strength. The nation that could outproduce the world, turning out 300,000 aircraft and 86,000 tanks during the war, could certainly afford to treat its prisoners with dignity. This wasn't just about morality, it was about showcasing a fundamental difference in ideologies. The root beer incident, seemingly trivial, was the first crack in the carefully constructed wall of German preconceptions, revealing an America far more complex and abundant than they had ever imagined. Operating Fort Des Moines was a logistical marvel, a testament to American organizational prowess under pressure. Thousands of German women POWs, many still clinging to their Nazi ideology, had to be housed, fed, and managed according to the strictures of the Geneva Convention. Captain Morrison and Sergeant Wheeler worked tirelessly, often from dawn until well past dusk. The American guards, many of them young men and women from small towns across the Midwest, pulled long shifts, maintaining order with a blend of firmness and unexpected kindness. The supply chains, stretching from distant factories to the heart of Iowa, never faltered. Thanks to the unparalleled industrial might of the United States, which had transformed from a peacetime economy to the arsenal of democracy almost overnight, food, clothing, and medical supplies flowed steadily. This constant abundance, a stark contrast to the rationing and scarcity in wartime Germany, was a silent, powerful message in itself. The root beer incident was merely the tip of the iceberg of cultural misunderstandings. Language barriers were a constant challenge, leading to comical errors and moments of genuine frustration. Local Iowa farmers' daughters, many of whom had studied German in high school or had German immigrant grandparents, were recruited as impromptu translators, their youthful enthusiasm often bridging gaps that official channels couldn't. But deeper cultural clashes emerged daily. German prisoners were often shocked by the sight of African American soldiers serving as guards, treated with respect and authority. This directly contradicted the racial hierarchies ingrained in Nazi ideology. The presence of women like Captain Morrison in positions of command also bewildered them. In their experience, women's roles were far more circumscribed. The casual American attitude toward hierarchy, where a private might respectfully question a sergeant or an officer might share a joke with an enlisted man, was utterly alien to their rigid military doctrine. Despite these challenges, Captain Morrison maintained an unwavering optimism. "We're not just holding prisoners," she'd often tell her staff, "we're showing them what America is made of." Sergeant Wheeler, ever the pragmatist, focused on solutions. When agricultural labor was needed on local farms, he saw an opportunity. Instead of forced labor, he helped establish a system where German POWs could volunteer for work details, earning small wages that could be used for canteen purchases. This incentive-based approach, so fundamentally American, was initially met with suspicion by the Germans. They expected coercion, not choice. Yet the opportunity to earn money, to contribute, and to experience a degree of freedom slowly began to chip away at their resistance. Cultural exchange programs, however informal, also began to emerge. American guards, curious about their captives, would sometimes share stories of their lives back home, showing photos of families and farms. German women, in turn, shared glimpses of their own lives, their hopes, and their fears. These small interactions, facilitated by the can-do spirit of the American staff, transformed potential conflict into cooperation. The American approach wasn't about breaking the prisoner's will through brutality, but about demonstrating an alternative way of life, a system built on pragmatism, fairness, and the belief that even adversaries deserved humane treatment. It was a subtle, yet profound form of psychological warfare, waged not with weapons, but with values. The sheer efficiency and abundance of the American system, from the steady flow of supplies to the respectful treatment of all personnel, regardless of race or gender, was a daily, undeniable refutation of everything the German women had been taught. For Hauptmann Greta Zimmermann and her fellow German POWs, the daily reality of Fort Des Moines was a relentless assault on their deeply held beliefs. The initial confusion over root beer, a seemingly trivial incident, had blossomed into a profound cognitive dissonance. Nazi propaganda had painted America as a nation of weak, decadent, racially impure individuals, teetering on the brink of collapse. Yet here they were, surrounded by an abundance that defied imagination. The food was not just plentiful, but varied, the clothing durable, the medical care surprisingly advanced. This wasn't a nation on its knees. It was a nation overflowing with resources, a stark contrast to the bombed-out cities and rationed existence they had left behind. The root beer, they slowly realized, wasn't weak alcohol. It was a testament to a society so rich in choice and production that it could afford to dedicate vast industrial capacity to producing non-essential, pleasurable beverages. Greta, a keen observer, found herself constantly re-evaluating. She watched Captain Morrison, a woman in uniform, commanding respect and making decisions with an authority that was both natural and unquestioned by her male subordinates. She saw African American guards, not as subservient, but as equals, their presence challenging every racist tenet she had been taught. The casual efficiency of the Americans, their ability to improvise and adapt without rigid adherence to protocol, was bewildering. It was so different from the German military's meticulous, often inflexible, adherence to doctrine. She remembered the endless drills, the strict hierarchies, the fear of stepping out of line. Here, there was a sense of individual initiative, a trust in the common sense of the ordinary soldier. Reports from German officers in other POW camps detailing similar experiences of American abundance and humane treatment were often dismissed by the dwindling Nazi command as either enemy propaganda or evidence of their officers' weakness. They couldn't conceive of a nation that would treat its enemies with anything but brutality. This ideological blindness prevented them from understanding the true nature of the American threat, not just its military might, but its underlying values and industrial capacity. The work details on Iowa farms provided the most direct operational validation of the American approach. Initially, Greta and many others expected to be driven by fear, forced to toil under harsh conditions. Instead, they found themselves working alongside American farmers, often women and older men, who treated them with a surprising degree of respect. The incentive system, where they earned a small wage, motivated them in a way that fear never could. They discovered that working hard yielded tangible benefits, a concept almost revolutionary after years of forced sacrifice for an abstract ideal. The German women, known for their discipline, began to outproduce expectations, not because they were coerced, but because they were given a measure of autonomy and fair compensation. This was a profound realization. American strength wasn't just about overwhelming force. It was about a system that incentivized cooperation and respected individual dignity, even for its enemies. The contrast between German rigidity and American flexibility, between fear-based compliance and voluntary cooperation, was laid bare in the sun-drenched fields of Iowa. The root beer, once a symbol of confusion, now represented a deeper truth. America's power lay in its abundance, its choices, and its unwavering belief in the human spirit. When the war finally ended, and the time came for the German women POWs to return home, they carried with them not just memories of defeat, but an unexpected education. They had arrived at Fort Des Moines believing in the inherent weakness and decadence of their American enemy, only to discover a nation whose strength came not from brutality, but from values they had been taught to despise: abundance, pragmatism, individual initiative, and a surprising commitment to human dignity. The root beer incident, once a source of bewilderment, became a symbolic story, passed down among them, representing the vast chasm between propaganda and reality. It was a tangible example of American plenty, a simple pleasure that spoke volumes about a society capable of producing such luxuries even in wartime. The impact of their experience was profound and far-reaching. Many of the returning POWs, having witnessed a functioning democracy firsthand, became quiet advocates for democratic values in post-war Germany. Some maintained correspondence with the American guards and administrators they had met, forging unlikely friendships across former battle lines. Greta Zimmermann, after returning to a shattered Germany, chose not to dwell on the past, but to build a new future. She became an educator in West Germany, teaching history and civics, often sharing her experiences in America as a testament to the power of democratic ideals and the importance of understanding different cultures. She spoke of the root beer, not as a drink, but as a symbol of a nation's capacity for choice and abundance, a stark contrast to the scarcity and control she had known. Captain Sarah Morrison continued her military career, rising through the ranks. Her experiences at Fort Des Moines solidified her belief in humane treatment for prisoners of war, advocating for policies that would eventually become standard practice and influence updates to the Geneva Conventions. She understood that treating enemies with dignity was not weakness, but a projection of American strength and moral authority. Sergeant James Wheeler returned to his factory job in Ohio, proud of his service and the role he played in demonstrating American efficiency and fairness. He often spoke of the ingenuity required to manage the camp, a challenge he met with the same can-do spirit he applied to the assembly line. By the end of the war, over 370,000 German POWs had been repatriated from American soil, many carrying similar stories. The cultural exchange programs, however informal, that emerged from these experiences laid groundwork for future diplomatic and educational initiatives between the two nations. The root beer incident, a small moment of cultural misunderstanding, proved something fundamental. American power came not from matching German brutality, but from demonstrating an alternative based on abundance, choice, and human dignity. It showed how ordinary Americans, from the fields of Iowa to the factories of Detroit, displayed extraordinary character, and how the nation's core values became its greatest weapon. This seemingly minor cultural clash revealed a vast philosophical divide that ultimately determined the war's outcome, proving that true strength lay not in rigid ideology, but in flexible pragmatism and an unwavering belief in the human spirit. Loved this glimpse into a forgotten corner of WFDU history. Dive deeper into the untold stories of American resilience and ingenuity. Subscribe to our channel for more historical narratives that challenge your perceptions and reveal the true spirit of a nation. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What aspect of this story resonated most with you? Your engagement helps us bring more history to life.